F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1925 novel The Great Gatsby is well beloved by many today. It offers insight into the society of America at the time, specifically the rich Eastern society of America at the turn of the 20th century. While it is a beloved story, it contains vitriolic content related to race and ethnicity, and provides an insight into the conflicted attitudes regarding race that were common amongst individuals like Fitzgerald. This is most obvious in the character of Tom Buchanan. Within our first pages of meeting him, we are shown that he is a racist. He takes the opportunity of meeting Nick to suggest that he should watch out, or these other races will have control of things. Tom finds what is in his view a dystopian future as a projected outcome in the pages of The Rise of the Colored Empires by someone named Goddard. This is a non-fictional book found only within Fitzgerald's fictional world. But while Goddard's work may be imaginary, Professor Hua Hsu of Vassar College notes its similarities to an actual book that exists within our world. The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy was a 1920 book by one Lothrop Stoddard. An unsigned editorial written in 1923, titled Back to the Mayflower, described Stoddard's book as the Bible of the racial revolutionists. This editorial also details that Stoddard himself was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Despite receiving his PhD in history, Stoddard dabbled in both eugenics and scientific racism. In his book, he talks about white supremacy and is worried about the increase in immigration of non-white peoples from around the world. He divides the white race into three main divisions: Nordic, Alpine, and Mediterranean, and, like Tom Buchanan's character, views Nordics as the greatest of those. What Fitzgerald did not know is that Stoddard's views would have an effect on the Nazi Party in the coming decades. Tom Buchanan's beloved book, which is written with a similar name and by a person whose last name rhymes with Stoddard, seems to be a conscious reference by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Though it is unknown if Stoddard and Fitzgerald knew each other personally, they did share the same publisher, Scribner. Fitzgerald was likely at least familiar with his work, and this is more than just a coincidence. As the views of the fictional book are held by Tom Buchanan, a character who is both foolish and wicked in the novel, it would seem that Fitzgerald is using this opportunity to mock the beliefs that are held by Stoddard in the real world. In fiction, one of the easier ways to show that you disagree with an idea is to, rather than state your disagreement, have it be loved or admired by a character that you have made clear is a fool. While the other characters do not seem to approve of Tom's white supremacy, they never make an effort to actually critique him for it. This could be seen as self-preservation, as we know that Tom is violent, or it could be a reflection of the passiveness of quote-unquote liberal white people at the turn of the 20th century. Nick, Daisy, and Jordan may think that his views are silly, but they will never be negatively affected by them, so they do little to discourage him from voicing them. I want to make it clear that this isn't a condemnation of their actions necessarily. They are fictional characters, so I'm not saying that they should have acted one way. Character flaws are fine in a novel, especially in one which is made sure to show us that all of the characters are flawed. However, not all of the uncomfortable racist material in The Great Gatsby can be credited to Thomas Buchanan's embarrassing dialogue or to the complacency of the other white characters. Fans of the novel likely know where I am already going. Yes, Mayor Wolfsheim. Despite being a character that only appears in 2 scenes, Wolfsheim has become so popular that he has appeared in the 1974, 2000, and 2013 versions of the film adaptations of The Great Gatsby. There are plenty of minor characters in the novel, but Wolfsheim stands out specifically because of how he is described by Fitzgerald, and, of course, through his proxy, Nick Carraway. As a quick side note, I want to recognize that Carraway is not Fitzgerald. He is a fictional character. However, he is a fictional character that, like Fitzgerald, is from an upper-middle-class family from the Midwest. He was educated at an Ivy League university, and he was a World War I veteran. He may not be a stand-in character for Fitzgerald, but he shares a lot in common with him. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that the views that are supposed by Carraway are shared by Fitzgerald. At the very least, the ones that aren't critiqued by the overall structure of the novel can be assumed to be ones that Fitzgerald either didn't seem fit to critique, or ones that he himself held. Anyways, back to Wolfsheim. When Nick first meets Wolfsheim, we are immediately told that he is a, quote, small, flat-nosed Jew, unquote. This is interesting because we weren't told if Daisy was a Gentile when we first met her. Wolfsheim then goes on to fit all of the stereotypes that anti-Semites hope Jews fit. He is cruel, wearing human molars on his body. He is greedy, manipulating the World Series. And he is inarticulate, mispronouncing Oxford and calling it a college instead of a university. A Jewish character exhibiting these traits would be suspect in any circumstance, but given that he is explicitly described as Jewish, something that we don't get for most of the other characters, it leaves the reader naturally wondering why we are told he is Jewish. Every sentence, every word in this novel was put there for a purpose. There was no accidental word. Fitzgerald meant to tell us that he was Jewish, and so we have to examine why. Indeed, Wolfsheim represents the Jewish stereotype, and we're told that he's Jewish so that we don't get it wrong. This isn't any other stereotype. He's not a caricature of a greedy person. No, he's a caricature of a Jew. And thus we are confronted with the truth that Fitzgerald included, intentionally, a Jewish stereotype. The only other Jewish character that appears in the novel works for Wolfsheim, and is not described in much greater detail beyond the stereotype. As another side note, I recognize that Fitzgerald also partially based Mayor Wolfsheim off from an actual Jewish individual who lived around the same time as Fitzgerald. Arnold Rothstein was a Jewish American gambler who had a hand in fixing the 1919 World Series. However, Arnold Rothstein was not small, and he did not have a flat nose. He was also highly intelligent, as you would have to be to fix the 1919 World Series. Really, the changes in the character from Arnold Rothstein to Mayor Wolfsheim only exhibit to up the stereotypical Jewishness. After all, you can't exactly show the full Arnold Rothstein. He was pretty much a genius when it came to numbers, but we can't have that showing in this stereotype of Mayor Wolfsheim. He has to be silly. He has to be ridiculous. It's also worth noting that, again, it is unknown if Fitzgerald knew Rothstein personally. However, it is unlikely as they ran in different circles. Still, Fitzgerald did run in circles with Jews. Jews that were not the stereotype that he made them out to be. Fitzgerald was neighbors with actor Lou Fields and Emmy Award-winning comedian Ed Wynn. These people were not criminals, they were not stereotypes, they were genuinely talented artists alongside Fitzgerald, but we don't see these kinds of people in the book. My purpose in speaking on this is not specifically to condemn Fitzgerald, but rather suggest that we need to be aware of portrayals of individuals of different ethnicities by authors and artists in the media that we consume. There's a lot more that I could talk about when it comes to Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, and race. I could talk about Fitzgerald's dismissive nature of the Jazz Age. I could also talk about how specifically his portrayal of white women is different than his portrayal of white men. And he also mentions The Sheik of Araby, a racist play that would be an entirely different can of worms. However, those are conversations for another day, and I believe that I have touched on the subject that I set out to touch upon.